fasting in Ramadan is mandatory for all Muslims. Now let's see briefly the meaning of fasting in the Sufi perspective. In the Quran it is stated, "O who you believe, fasting is prescribed for you as it was prescribed for those before you, that happily you may be reverent." Perhaps all Muslims think that prayer or salat is the most important form of devotion, and it is. So fasting is not the most important devotion, but it is the most unique than others. During fasting, a person trains himself to refrain from doing anything that is prescribed by the Sharia. A Muslim is prohibited from eating, drinking, and so on that can break his fast, which when he is not fasting, all of those things are not prohibited. This means that the person makes himself unique from others, makes himself different from anything else, makes himself independent of anything. Not being dependent on anything else such as eating and drinking and his lower soul makes a person independent. He becomes sufficient unto himself. Sufis generally define tasawwuf or Sufism as takhalluq bi akhlaqillah, assuming the character traits of God. In this case, the person imitates the character traits of God as stated in the Quran, God the eternally sufficient unto himself. The second uniqueness of fasting is that generally the devotions performed by Muslims are for themselves, but fasting is for God and God himself is the reward. Prophet Muhammad said, God said, "The fasting is for me and I'll give the reward for it, as he the one who observes the fast leaves his sexual desire, food and drink for my sake." Fasting is a screen from hell. The sign of Ramadan is the moon. In the Quran it is stated, Ramadan is the month in which the Quran was revealed as guidance to man and clear proof of the guidance, and criterion of falsehood and truth. So when you see the new moon, you should fast the whole month. The obligation of fasting is confirmed by the verse. However, the Sufis interpret the verse as its inner meaning. In the outward aspect, when one sees the moon, one must fast, and in the inner aspect, when one sees the creator of the moon, one must fast. Indeed, fasting in question is not like fasting as the Sharia means. However, it has to do with the spirit of our fast as the Sharia means. So the fasting that is obligatory because of seeing the moon is only fasting is observed between dawn and nightfall when the azan of the Maghrib prayer is sounded. And this type of fasting is only refraining from eating and drinking and all things that can break the fast. As for those who see the creator of the moon, they fast from anything other than the creator of the moon, namely God. It is not only the abstinence from anything that is prohibited by the Sharia, but from anything other than God. This is what the Sufis observe. In addition, the difference of the two is that fasting based solely on seeing the moon is aimed at God, Lillah, while fasting based on seeing the creator of the moon is to fast with God, Billah. The former is fasting in which there is still a duality between I and God, so that I act as an agent who gives something to God, while the latter shows an attempt to eliminate the I-ness. One fasts with God, not with himself. It is very clear that the latter has even reached the state in which he has fasted even from his existence. No longer saying, my fast is for you, but this fast is with you and for you. He doesn't claim to be an agent who is fasting, and indeed he himself doesn't feel that he is fasting, because he is annihilated in God. Feeling that he is fasting with God, he realizes that fasting itself is from God and for God as well. And it is God himself who fasts, because he is annihilated in God. Fana fillah. This state is certainly due to the depth of his fast in refraining from anything other than God, in addition to what the external Sharia teaches. This means that a Sufi negates all existence, even himself, so that there is only God. This is tawhid. In this case, there is no God but God turns into there is no wujud but God. In a hadith, it is stated, fast when you see the new moon of Ramadan, li ru'yatihi. The Sufis comprehend the hadith in addition to what the Sharia teaches, namely witnessing the moon as well as witnessing God. So the hadith is read by the Sufis, fast when you see God, li ru'yatihi. Of course, it can't be such at all that because the Sufis seek God, they refuse to see the moon and also refuse to fast as instructed by the Sharia. This is absolutely wrong understanding and error accusation. So whoever sees God then fast. According to the Sufis, those who fast because they see the moon will catch a reward from God himself. Meanwhile, those who fast because they see God catch a reward that is none other than God himself. The former gets a reward in the form of a reward, while the latter gets a different reward that is intimacy with God. In this respect, we come to know the meaning of the sequel of the early hadith. And there are two pleasures for a person observing fast. One at the time of breaking his fast, and the other at the time when he will meet his Lord. These two pleasures show two important aspects of fasting observed by a Muslim. If he fasts only in its outward aspect, he will get the pleasure of breaking his fast when he eats and drinks after a day of refraining them, and also gets the pleasure of meeting God in the hereafter. However, for a Muslim who fasts both outward and inner aspects, he doesn't meet his Lord in the hereafter, but in this world, now, not later, because he himself has received the reward of intimacy with God. According to Ibn Arabi, the pleasure of breaking the fast is for his animal soul, whereas the pleasure when he meets his Lord is for his subtle center of divinity, Al-Latifa Rabbaniya. Fasting gives him a meeting with God by way of witnessing him. Quotes, based on this, fasting is more perfect and complete than prayer because fasting results in meeting with and witnessing him. Salat is dua, prayer or orisons, not witnessing, and there is a veil that goes with it. According to Ibn Arabi, the Salah has two parts, as stated in the Hadith Qudsi, I have divided the prayer into two halves between me and my servants. Meanwhile, there is no division in fasting. Fasting belongs solely to God, not to the servant. So it is precisely in this respect that the reward for one who fasts is greater than any other devotion. Furthermore, according to Ibn Arabi, there is a precious secret that witnessing and praying can never be united. Indeed, conversation in prayer provides comprehension, but as Ibn Arabi asserts, in a conversation you pay more attention to what is being discussed, not the one who is speaking. Unlike conversation, witnessing makes one astonished. Although fasting is aimed at controlling biological nature, it seems impossible that fasting is mandatory devotion only pertaining to the outward aspect. In fasting, Muslims actually train themselves to be able to control their personal desire and ego that have been entrenched in themselves for the previous 11 months. When a person refrains from eating, drinking, having sex, and things that can break the fast, it means that he is controlling his greed and tyrannical ego, which he usually allows to control and subjugate himself. In this respect, it is conspicuous that the fast is an act of capturing the desire of the self or ego. In the previous months, Muslims were involved and unconsciously immersed in their ego, so that the ego becomes thickened and even veil them from God. Therefore, God bestows Muslims with the holy month of fasting, that is Ramadan, during which Muslims fast, saying no to their own I, which is often hailed and obeyed previously. In Ramadan, Muslims have a great opportunity to fast, to abstain not only from the desire and the worldly things, but also from their I-ness, which means that Muslims fast or abstain from anything other than God. To abstain from anything other than God indicates the intensity of one's piety at the highest level of tawhid. In other words, Ramadan is a month in which Muslims have been in the process of reaffirming their authentic tawhid. After being habituated to fasting or refraining from anything other than God for a whole month, Muslims will be made to perform this habit in the following months. One of the Sufis beautifully said, if one has fasted from all worldly things, then all the months he will live are the holy month of Ramadan. See you next time.